Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Bobcast, made by me, Bobby, Victory, Osborne. The topic of today's episode is, what is the coolest thing? Now, many of you watching this may be thinking, wow, this guy is very good looking. And also, dinosaurs are pretty cool. And so are trucks, knights, cowboys, samurai, pirates, Vikings, whatever, etc. You know? And to that I say, thank you for the compliment. And I believe that I've created the most accurate answer to the age-old question. So, without further ado, no more diversions from my stunning appearance. Let's dive in to this awe-inspiring epic adventure. One, when it comes to cool things, we can see an obvious pattern on what society deems to be cool. And that pattern is time. Yes, the thing you store on your wrist, ignore in the mornings when your alarm goes off, and wait for when you're in a boring lesson at school. Yes, that time. You see, I believe that I speak for the majority of the world when I say that this period in history is boring as hell. I mean, but why exactly is that? Well, because we're experiencing it through our eyes, not the eyes of soldiers fighting, the inventors of scientific breakthroughs. What I mean by this is, we're boring. You and me. I mean, the people who wrote history of medieval ages, they only recorded the cool stuff. The battles, the inventions, the tales of empires growing and falling. This isn't limited to just the medieval ages. But if we were actually there, it'd be mundane, melancholy, and, to put it simply, be dry. It'd be boring. Because these stories took place over the course of multiple millennia, and it skips over the common man like me and you, which makes these warriors seem that much more important. Not saying that they weren't, but in comparison to the tiny shreds of exposition they're given, peasants felt insignificant, boosting the grandness of the glorious knights and kings, emperors, samurais, people who sailed the seven seas. Now, we've explained why humans appeared so cool in history, but why did dinosaurs get that exact same level of praise when they were the only ones about? There was no one to distract them from the spotlight, other than a few insects that were pretty interesting. You know, you had prehistoric spiders and that, but really, there's nothing to sidetrack it. Well, because we mainly see them as cool due to the mystery around them. The beliefs of these primitive prehistoric species from 30 to 40 years ago, what they believed back then was ridiculous now. I mean, so why would the future not give our beliefs a reality check? I mean, they will. That mystery and uncertainty around the mighty and fantastical beasts creates a curiosity that shrouds people in amazement. And if that doesn't sound cool, I don't really know what does. However, many people, myself included, only partly though on my half, would say that science is extremely cool. The fact that we, the human race, are only but a speck in the grand scheme of the universe as a whole, and how from using sticks and rocks to defend ourselves, to building flying monoliths capable of space travel. Now, I'm no genius, but that sounds pretty cool. Now, before we continue with the final argument in this debate, there's a quick interlude. A philosophical query has been plaguing my mind. Is kindness real? Now, this side topic will get pretty heavy for some audiences, so feel free to skip to this time here to avoid any existential crisis that this might ensue in. Obviously, it's a bit overdramatic, but, you know, I plan to get pretty heavy in this subject because it's a pretty heavy subject. Yeah, skip to it if you want. Feel free not to. I'd rather you didn't, but your opinion really, innit? Now, when pondering this debate, there are two main components that must be accounted for. What is kindness? And the second of all, what separates it from empathy? In my opinion, kindness is doing something for someone for no personal gain or benefit, whereas empathy is doing something similar to that, but to make yourself feel better for the person you're helping. So, say that you're walking home and you see a homeless man on the street. If you give him money, why? Why are you giving him it? Is it to help him, or is it to help yourself, to make yourself feel better? I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. You know, by all means, donate money to people in need. But think beforehand. Think to yourself, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for me or for them? Hopefully, you know, a more positive light would be shown and you'd say, I'm doing it for him. But subconsciously, donating money does make you feel better. It's not just money, but giving people things and helping them, it's a psychological effect known as the helper's high, which is a psychological trigger which releases dopamine in your brain, which, for those who don't know what dopamine is, it's a kind of endorphin, which makes you happy. It's what makes you happy. And so scientifically, donating or just helping people isn't kindness in the literal sense. Again, depending on your personal opinions, these are all just mine. You know, obviously people would see kindness and empathy as they'd have different views on them. Now, a second point I'd like to make is relationships. I think that's a big part in kindness in general, because in relationships, personal gain is very important. As Aristotle once said, or he claimed, there are 4 relationships. Codependent, where one person, the taker, gains something, you know, attention, love, something they want personally. Whereas the other, they get their needs met by being the giver, you know. So, you know, the taker would give him food, and in return he'd get admiration. He'd be looked on like, not a god, but more like a king, like someone, he gets a sort of god complex from it. There's transactional relationships, where the relationship is purely for each other's gain, like business partners. They're both aware that there isn't any there's not a relationship there in the literal sense. It's all just, you know. Now there's manipulative relationships, in which one person controls the other, trapping them into a imaginary cage where they believe they need to be sheltered by them, the controller, if that makes sense. It's similar to the codependent relationship, only way more toxic, if you ask me. And finally, there's the I always say it's wrong. Opportunistic, where both sides of the relationship only crave personal gain. Popularized in the medieval ages, with marriages, when they were arranged purely for social status or some form of power. There wasn't any love there. Most people would say, oh, isn't that the same as transactional, but it's slightly fake. It's more fake, you know. it's like a fake version of that. Like, they're pretending to be in a loving relationship when they're not. I only have a baseline understanding of the theory. I'm trying to learn more about it. But that's just what I've understood from it so far. If anybody has any further understanding, please let me know. But I'd like you, the audience, to think about some of the relationships you have with people and question what each of you gain from it. I mean, I hope this experiment will educate you into appreciating the friendships you have and maybe even exposing a toxic or one-sided relationship which you should terminate. Again, only if you want to. Most relationships are very happy. I'm not saying that they aren't. That's more of a... Aristotle had a very nihilistic view on society and pretty much everything as a whole. He was a very cynical person. But moving on from this, my final argument is simple. Free will. As humans, we all have free will. And existentialists say that life has no meaning. And they will argue that showing kindness in such a pointless world is the ultimate proof, the nail in the coffin, that it has no meaning. As if we did have a specific meaning, a locked-in function, we wouldn't truly have free will, would we? So by rebelling against this lack of confinement that we face in our own morality, by spreading kindness and compassion, we truly are without an end goal, which some may find terrifying, the idea that we have no grand purpose, but me personally, I see it as kind of comforting, this view, how we don't have a prison around us controlling our every move. I understand that in this current climate of the world, I mean, that's a bit debatable, but in general, we are free. We are free beings. So with that, I'll now be continuing with the main topic of today's episode, the coolest thing, and I'll leave you, the audience, to create your own opinion on this matter. I hope that you enjoyed my philosophical interlude. I didn't get as deep as I wanted to, I'm going to be honest, but it's the first episode of the Bobcast, so I didn't want to go too heavy into it. I didn't want to make this too long. I say that, but it's probably going to be longer than I thought this video, or not. But now we can finally return to the last part of our conversation, the coolest thing. Now, we've discussed historical events such as knights and emperors, as well as prehistoric factors and scientific breakthroughs. But the one thing that hasn't been mentioned is chemicals, slightly linking back to science. And by what I mean by that is what literally dictates what is cool. Dopamine. I realised I have brought this up before. That is a bit my fault. I kind of messed up in the script. It might not come to a surprise to all of you that a good night's sleep will release dopamine into your brain. The same with healthy food and sunlight. But none of these are really cool. Not really. I mean, no offence to anyone sunbathing whilst watching this, but it's not. But technically, having a healthy lifestyle makes you feel awesome, and I would agree that eating a salad in front of your friends whilst they're all eating burgers does give you a slight feeling of superiority, which is what I'd assume being in a last stand against a whole army just so you could save your team of your own soldiers would feel like. I mean, obviously I would never be in that situation, but I doubt ordering a salad whilst going to bed at 8 is as cool as being a samurai. So with all these factors, it would only be illogical to assume that the coolest thing ever is a healthy person who gets all the attention as shown by the history record and the dopamine, whilst being great at science. All three of those are the coolest thing ever when you link them together. Wait, isn't that just Dolph Lundgren? Suppose that does make a lot of sense, actually. Rocky IV was amazing. I hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode of the Bobcast. Please let me know your thoughts, and feel free to like the video if you want me to continue this series. And yeah, again, it would really help me if you could put some ideas down for the next episode, because as you can tell, this was a bit... I could have done better. My own personal opinions. I kind of dedicated this video to my film studies class. They came up with the name The Bobcast as well, so all props to yous. Yeah. With that, goodbye.